Okay, chipboard storage. The first thing that I do when I get chipboard, and I'm talking about bare naked chipboard that comes in sheets like this, which is often what I have, I immediately take them out of the packages, pop out all the shapes, and sort them into one of these inexpensive bins. Now chipboard letters I keep in a different place because I do tend to use those more often. I have this, it's 3 towers here of clear storage, again clear, and each drawer is labeled, and inside are, you know, some rather large, sometimes smaller, but all chipboard letters of different kinds go in there. I touched on paper storage in the first video, but let me take you in a little bit more detailed. So, like I said, vertical storage I'm a big fan of. I do label the fronts, and then I keep everything in here. This in particular is Graphic 45 collection, so I keep everything in here that has to do with that collection. So it might not only be stickers, it would be the paper. 12 by 12 is always next. And then what I do is I keep a separate zip bag with cut pieces of the 12 by 12 in front, so I know those have cuts in them. And then I'll have my double-sided cardstock in here, and the chipboard sheets in there, the 8 by 8 papers, and the 6 by 6s down there in front. And if you notice, I'm holding it upside down. This one is uncut and probably even unopened. But this one, when it's upside down in there, that tells me that there are some cut pieces. I didn't want to have a whole bunch of little baggies of pieces in there, so I just make sure that when I put it back in there, I'm putting it in upside down, so when I pull it out, all the pieces don't fall everywhere. So I do that with all my collections. For the way that I work, I have to keep my cardstock separated. So when I'm doing things for Ranger and Tim Holtz, I like to have my Craft Core Coordinations cardstock separate. And so here's a little tip if you have to keep your collection separate like that. If they have a little color chart on the back, and a lot of them do, I would go ahead and cut that out, and I tape it right to my vertical storage. And then that way I have a quick visual of the color and the color number, and then I can quickly just go through here and find it and pull it out. I mentioned in video 1 about my close to my heart cardstock storage. I have to keep that separated, so it's over here, and everything is labeled in alphabetical order by color name. For me, that works. Some consultants may do that differently, but that works for me. And then what I do is just a little tip is in the labeled folder, I will have not only full 12 by 12 pieces, they would be toward the back, and then I have pieces that are cut more toward the front. Now, sometimes I just have little pieces and scraps, and that's where I would throw them into my little scrap bin here, and this guy gets really full. But I do pull from here from time to time just to test a stamp or try something out very quickly, or test run a Cricut cut or whatever. So that's what that's for. So I'll go through that from time to time and kind of weed it out. Alright, as a final tip for paper storage, this is my tower where I have all my Tim Holtz paper collection, not cardstock. And before I had labeled on the shelves here with the label maker the names of each of the collections. And after a while that got to be a problem because sometimes I would put the paper away and I would cover it up and I wouldn't be able to see it, or I would change where the paper went for whatever reason. So instead I grabbed a little tag punch and I punched out a little sampler of the paper. And so this is a quick visual reference for me. I know his papers quite well now that all I need is just a little visual cue and I can find it pretty quickly. I put a little eyelet in the tag, a little twine, and then I use those clear command adhesive hooks and just put them there. So I know right away that the very top shelf is going to have the new Wallflower, French Industrial, and Destinations paper packs. And it just goes on down. You saw in video 1 that I store my close to my heart stamps in this area. I like to keep my collections of stamps separated. It just seems to make sense. And then within each bin, if there are different categories, for example, this one is labeled Flowers, Friendship, and School. I'll actually have a divider in here that's labeled to separate those within the bin itself. And in the closet I have more stamps like you saw in video 1. Tim Holtz stamps, Stampers Anonymous I should say, because some of these are Wendy Vecchi's. I store in this big basket. It just is the right size, so that works. And so here's a little tip with those cling mount stamps. They usually come on a big carrier sheet in here. So what I like to do, rather than trying to keep track of them in their little plastic that they come in, I might get rid of that, but then keep the carrier sheet with the stamp set. And I mean, they're just loose back there, so I don't want to lose track of them. If they lose their sticky, and I put them back in the basket. So I've purchased these clear zippable folders, I guess you'd say, from Office Depot, and they're the perfect size for his stamps. They don't have 3-ring binder things to them at all. I don't need that because I'm storing them in a basket. Same goes with smaller stamp sets. Let's see. Oh, smaller stamp sets like Tim's small sets that you can find at the craft store. These are a little smaller. They also come from Office Depot, same zipper closure. And then another little tip, when I get a stamp set like this, if it doesn't have any kind of reference to the stamp itself when I peel it off to use it, I don't always know where did I pull this stamp from, because sometimes I'm working with several stamp sets at once. So I make a photocopy of the stamp set first when I first get it, and then I have it in there. I write the name in case I lose that in the packaging, and I just keep it in that same little clear pocket for reference later. So those are from Office Depot, and then a few smaller ones that I found at the Container Store. See, these are just a little smaller, which is nice. And these are Hampton Art Stamps for Graphic 45 specifically. And so they have that same zipper closure. They're just smaller and a little thicker. But same deal. I make a little photocopy. I have it labeled, and it's very organized and orderly. And then finally, we all have those random stamps that we've bought from all different companies, and some of them are wood blocks, some of them are cling. You know, don't really have a specific place to keep them separated into different categories. So that's what I've done here. I have this weird obsession with coffee stamps. I love coffee, and so I love coffee stamps. And then some other ones I just love that I can't ever get rid of, and even more there. And then here is just a, you know, a random collection of different kinds of stamps from different stamp companies. So they're easy to get to. They're in a clear container, you know, quick reference, just kind of floating through here to pull something out. In part 1 of the video, you saw my little setup over the door here for punches. These are some of my punches, border punches and random shapes. But I promised to tell you about this little cabinet here, and that has to do with punches as well. First, I'll just give you a quick little peek in here. This folds down, which is nice because when I pull things out of the closet, I can set them down on here and look through them. This part of the organizer is business stuff, my calculator, and some business stamps and whatnot. So not a lot gets stored in there. I almost always use that just as a shelf. And then inside the drawers are my punches and some other things. But basically, these are the smallest of the punches that I own, random shapes and stuff. And then I have some refills and tape runners and such. Now, if you notice within the drawers, there are these little, like, utensil drawers, I would call them, little utensil separators for maybe in the kitchen. But I use them here just to kind of keep things separated. And in the second drawer, if you'll notice, these are mostly squares and circles. I have all different sizes. That seems to come in handy for me. But if you notice below them, this is another little tip, so that your punches aren't shifting all around inside of your drawers. If you're storing them in drawers, you'll notice I have some of that grippy shelf liner stuff. You can buy it on a roll at Walmart and various stores. So I line the shelf with that, so when I pull open the drawer, they don't go sliding all around. And the very bottom is a very heavy drawer because those are all my biggest punches, the very large ones, various shapes and whatnot. And they are in there fairly orderly. You'll also see that some of that shelf liner is in there. I don't know about you, but I think ribbon is probably the toughest thing as far as storage. So over the years, I've tried different things. And right now what's working really well for me is my little area down here under my table. This is my stand-up work table. I've basically gone in here and separated the types of ribbon. let's see, ribbon, okay, down here. So I just kind of separated according to what type of ribbon that I have in here. And so this is all the grosgrain ribbon. And right away you'll notice, again, those utensil trays. I don't have, they're actually a great size for ribbon, by the way, if you can see that. I don't have one for every single, you know, column of ribbon here. I do have one here and here, and then you don't need one here. And then I store, you know, larger pieces here, and then some of the smaller ones are in a long bin back there. They all fit pretty nicely in these little drawers. So satin ribbon, same deal. And then I would separate my organdy and other. I guess other would be the rickrack and stuff in the back. I have a drawer named Random Trims, so that's like zipper trim and rosette ribbon, and you get the idea, that type of stuff. Lace trims, this is all the lace, obviously twill and gingham. Oh, and in these drawers in particular, I got these clear storage containers. I think these are supposed to be for maybe your underwear drawer, your sock drawer, I don't know. But they're in that department of Walmart, so that's what I'm thinking. But I use them here. And then the last drawer would have like shimmer tape, washi, velvet, and stuff like that. We talked about how I have my little bottles and small things kind of mostly on these two racks, but there are still more things that need storage. These are things that I do use. I don't just store them. That's the key. We want to use them. So again, with the clear storage, like these are my dilution sprays from Ranger. I know the lighting isn't really great right here, but these are just clear containers from Walmart, and I've seen them in Bed Bath & Beyond and Target. Basically, I think that they're supposed to be used in the refrigerator, you know, to store your Coke cans. But I think they work as really great little organizers that are clear. And so my Ranger, these are my paints. Yep. So I used Ranger's labels from their website and labeled the top so I can see them, and they're clear from the side so I know just what's in this bin. Whoops. And they easily stack right on top of each other, which is nice. And then I have another one up here. This shelf is great. However, when you have a lot of little bottles and you're trying to get to a color that isn't in the front row, that became a problem. I was knocking things down. They were falling all over the place. So another one of those clear bins. This is a nice long one. These are my stains. And yeah, it's a little narrower than the one I just showed you. So this one's perfect for on a little narrow shelf like that. And then we have these cute little toolbox kind of things. These came from the Container Store. This one in particular has my little bottles of alcohol inks, Ranger alcohol inks. These are fairly inexpensive, just a couple of dollars from the Container Store. And so I have Crackle paint in one, and Perfect Pearls and Studio Paints in the other. And like I said, this one has the alcohol inks. Now, speaking of the Crackle paints, here's a little tip. On my little bulletin board here, sometimes I'll do this with certain things. I have a piece of grunge board, and then I took the Crackle paints that I owned, and I, did a little swab of them on here and labeled what they were and let them dry. And let's see if you can see up close. Yeah, so this little swatch card gives me a really good idea of how it's going to crackle, the color it's going to turn to when it's dry, and it's just a good representation, a quick reference for me. And this is the top of my work table. We went over a few things about the shelf above it, but I wanted to show you a little quick tip about storing those grid blocks. Okay, when you do cling stamps, these are Tim Holtz grid blocks to cling the stamp to. And gosh, how do you store those? So I had purchased one of the Sizzix die storage boxes, and it had this little tray with these little like dividers. And I didn't use it for the Sizzix dies. I actually thought it would be perfect for all my grid blocks. So that stays right here on my tabletop, and I pull from there and slide them back in there very easily and quickly. Okay, that's it for part 2. Stay tuned for part 3, which I will share with you how we got this magnetic board to hang over the door. I'm going to do a little something fancy down here. And then I'm going to tell you how we made this regular table into a stand-up table.